You really got to hand it to the M.T.A. You really got to take your hats off. They did it again. Here we are with an emergency, partially, I believe, of their own doing. Scare tactics, threats, telling people doomsday is coming unless we get a bailout. We're not going to sit before the body. We don't want a microphone. We don't want to answer questions. We're not going to tell you where we spent the money. We're not even going to tell you where we're going to spend the money with specificity, the kind of specificity that we all deserve to have before we're forced to make tough choices on behalf of the people. None of that happened, and they're going to get a check. A big fat one. It's a blank check, except for the signature. That's not blank. It's going to be signed by the people we represent. And how did we get here? I want to speak about the process, as my colleagues have as well. We went through a tough budget here. It got heated. And I think I heard from the other side of the aisle that mistakes were made, and we're going to do better next time. This is next time. And we didn't do better. We've done worse. There's been a lot of dishonesty with respect to this process. I've heard from members of the TWU, good, hard-working people. They put ads in newspapers. They came to my office, outside the office, and petitioned and protested, as it is their right to do, because they were sold a bill of goods by the M.T.A. and someone else. They were told Senator Lanza is not willing to help out. His colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle, they don't want to help. They're sitting on their hands. That's a lie. I don't blame them. I met a group of people from the TWU the other day up here in Albany, young lady. I could tell she was the kind of person we want working for us out there. She said, you have to vote for this, Senator Lanza. I'm scared. I said, why are you scared? They said, because if you don't do this, I'm going to lose my job. That's what they're telling me. Who can blame her? Who can blame her? And when we talked about the merits or lack thereof in this legislation and how we could have done it better, you know what, in all honesty, she didn't really want to hear it. She was kind of numb to it. And again, I don't blame her, because she was afraid. And so from her point of view, whatever package the M.T.A. wanted, please just go ahead and do it. So it's not her fault. But I can tell you there's fault here. Because it was dishonest to say that we were unwilling to come to the table, to sit down and work together. I'm going to repeat a lot of what's been said about why this is such a bad piece of legislation, but I think it's important to understand why it is we got to this point, why we didn't do better. Here's the truth. I reached out to the majority leader. I said I'd be willing to vote. I will vote for an M.T.A. bailout if you will hear the concerns of the people I represent on Staten Island. I know there are no easy choices here, and there'd be no easy piece of legislation regardless of who was at the table. But I said, if you would listen to the concerns of my constituents, and if we can change parts of this legislation to reflect that, you'd have my vote. I wrote to the majority leader. I asked the majority leader. I'm still waiting for that meeting. Majority leader's prerogative. Control the process. You can do it your way. But I believe there's a right way and a wrong way. And I think this was the wrong way. Maybe you're like me. You have the occasion to go to a funeral, a service to pay homage to a good person that we shared the earth with, and you listen to the eulogies and you hear good things being said. You hear descriptions about things they've done in their life which substantiate their decency or how that life was well lived. And you leave the funeral and it gives you that extra incentive, and you think about it and you reflect and you say, you know what? I want to do those sorts of things. I want to live up to those standards. Well, I just went to one of those funerals, the great Senator John Markey, and I listened to the eulogies, and I listened to the great things that he did. And one of the things that he is credited of being part of was the bailout of New York City, a time when he came together, Republicans, Democrats. They put politics aside. They didn't play games. And they said, we've got work to do. There's always time for politics later, but on this one, it's too big, it's too important to do it any other way but to work together. Well, those opportunities don't come along very often. This was one of them. This is that big. This was the one that we should have put politics aside, that we should have had both parties at the table, all stakeholders, the taxpayers, the riders, and we should have worked together, collaborated, negotiated, only on substance, and then come to this chamber and vote together, take a tough vote together, but the right vote with the right legislation, and that didn't happen. I wrote the governor. I asked the governor to utilize his leadership to call upon a bipartisan task force-like approach here. Didn't happen. Wrote a letter to the M.T.A. In all fairness, I was not very optimistic. They didn't let me down. I haven't had a response. They're getting a blank check, and they don't have to do anything different from what they've done before. We've talked. Truth be told, people ought to know, Democrats, Republicans, we leave this chamber, we talk as colleagues and friends. I haven't heard anyone, Democrat or Republican, say they believe the M.T.A. was doing a good job. And yet here we are, again, with a blank check. I served some of the members across the aisle I served with in the City Council. I served on the Transportation Committee. I see Senator Addabbo smiling. Senator Perkins not. There were others. He's smiling now. You know, we asked these questions then. We didn't get answers. It's a few years. We're still asking the questions. We're not getting the answers. We don't only deserve to have these answers. We need to have these answers. You see what's going on in corporate America and the economic downturn and the bailout? You know, the M.T.A. ought to report their financial condition with the same specificity as any publicly traded company in this country. Why not?